voice is breaking up, that means I have network issues. So if it keeps going on, then let me know. I will. In that case, I will switch to a different network. All right. So today we're going to talk about the theories, classic theories.
It's 90 degrees
Alexa, stop
Fahrenheit.
that. We're going to talk about classic theories of economic growth and development. So there has been some, you know, uh, the traditional, the standard economic analysis has some theories try to explain how economies can grow faster, how that would lead to economic development. So we're going to talk about that, those theories, and then we'll switch to we'll move to chapter 4 after finishing these things. Chapter 4 talks about um, the contemporary theories of economic development. So that those theories generally takes into a type of institutions or problems that developing countries generally face, and try to explain what are the problems and what can be done to overcome those problems so that the economy can grow faster. Okay, so the kind of the main theme of this classic theories of economic development or economic growth basically focuses on accumulation of capital. Societies accumulate capital that makes them more productive and wealthier. Um, when I say capital, I mean a physical capital. Okay, so the physical capital. You're familiar with this production function from 302. So when you talk about capital or physical capital, generally these are the equipments or machineries that people use to produce more goods, produce goods and services. So this is different from human capital. So if you think about a hunter-gatherer society or a society of hunters and fishermen, for example, so one thing is they can try to catch fish all day long and do whatever. I mean, they will have some. The output would be the amount of fish, or they can try to hunt animals. The output would be um, the number of animals that they have uh, captured. So if they do it manually, okay, so that is one option. The other option is they can separate some part of their time. Let's say uh, they hunt or fish from in the morning, for example, and in the afternoon, in the around noon, they spend some time to make, let's say, uh, a boat, for example, for fishermen, or fishing net. So they are separating some time to come up with capital equipment or capital. For example, bows and arrows; those are capital equipment for a hunter. Boat or fishing net; these are capital for fishermen. So if they have fishing net, for example, and a boat, so they are going to be more productive in the future, right? So accumulation, if you think, so it will be easier for them to catch fish if you compare a person who's catching fish with his bare hand and versus a man with boat and fishing net. The second person is going to be much more productive. Will be able to produce or catch more fish. So that same goes for the hunter. Hunter, for example, if he has a bow and arrow, so having more capital makes you more productive. So the economy will grow at a faster rate. So the standard production function that we have is y equals is a function of labor and capital. So more capital you have, the more productive or more output that society is going to produce, and the more productive that individuals are going to be. So this was the main idea, or this is kind of the main idea of the standard economic classic theories of economic growth. So there are four types of theories that we can think of. Four major categories or major type of theories in this particular group. So those theories are okay. So one important thing that you need to understand. So whatever we have, the thing that we have discussed here is that capital accumulation can lead to a virtuous cycle or virtuous circle. So basically means if you produce more capital, that makes you more productive. So you will have more time to produce more capital, which in turn is going to make you even more productive and so on. So this process continues. Now, one problem that we don't really this theory generally does not explain that why some societies do accumulate more capital or capital at a faster rate than other societies, and why some societies versus the poor countries. So this theories generally does not this theories generally do not talk about that or try to do not explain that. So there are four major categories in this particular in this classic among these classic theories: linear stages of growth model, theories and patterns of structural change, international dependence revolution, and neoclassical free market counter revolution. So if you think about linear stages of growth model, so scholars in the 50s and 60s viewed this development as a series of successive stages of economic growth. So people have to save, leading to investment, and in some cases need foreign aid. So all that is all an economy would need to grow at a faster rate. So 50s and 60s they work kind of explain or the theories in the 50s and 60s or economists at that time emphasized on this idea. Uh, and it was kind of quite well in terms of explaining the theories that, or explaining the experience that economies Western Europe after the Second World War experienced. So Western Europe generally, after the destruction of all those, after the destruction of the Second World War, the Western Europe basically with the help of the US and increasing their savings and also receiving some foreign aid as well as technical assistance from the US, they managed to grow at a faster rate, and they quickly recover from the bad scenario. So economists was kind of trying to focus on that same idea that if you just give them more investment, more capital equipment, it could be through savings, domestic savings, or through foreign aid, they are going to grow. That's all we need. In the 70s, however, this theory was replaced with something called pattern of structural change and in structural change, and the another group was international dependence revolution. So patterns of structural change. And then after this international dependence revolution and the structural change, so in the 80s and 90s, that was uh, a neoclassical counter-revolution kind of dominated the discussion. International dependence revolution sometime came back again in a modified version sometime after this after 2000. However, um, main main focus of all these things, except for this one, the other things, main focus was kind of capital accumulation leading to economic growth. So if you linear stage of growth had the major theories in this group includes Rostow's stages of economic growth. So it's not exactly a theory, rather than talking about uh, what generally happens when economies grow from underdevelopment to development. So the growth, what this Rostow's stage of growth basically says is that the economies will, through capital accumulation, will transform from. I need more space. So economies will transform from So economy will go through 5 stages of growth. So it will transform from traditional society, from which we'll have precondition for take up, precondition take off. So the idea of the plane taking off, like starting to fly. So the precondition for takeoff will be followed by the takeoff, the economy growing, which will be followed by the drive to maturity. So how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have age of high mass consumption. Okay, so that is basically these are the stages that an economy will go through. These 5 stages. Uh, um, when it becomes when it comes to be known as a developed economy or wealthy nation. Then we have Harrod-Domar growth model, sometimes also referred to as AK model, because it comes with output is kind of uh, a constant times the amount of capital that the economy is going to have. So that's why it's sometimes known as AK model. Uh, so let's Yeah, and among these theories and patterns of structural change, this is the most widely known. There are some other things that we can talk about, but this is most widely known model, so we'll talk about that. I'm going to skip this international dependence revolution here. You can take a look at this. Then we'll talk about neoclassical free market. Any questions up to this point?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Now let's talk about Solow growth model. Yeah, sorry, Harrod-Domar growth model. So this model kind of explain the idea or this whole development process, especially for the if you think about the Western economies. This is quite good in terms of explaining how economy can grow. So economic growth comes from investment and saving, constant out. So so output and so the AK model that we mentioned. So this is basically the constant times. Okay, so let's call it C. Sorry, let's call it A. So in that case, we can basically this C is equal to or K over Y. So this is our increment. All this is known as capital output ratio or incremental capital output ratio. That is some constant C.
Sir, is this ratio always constant?
Yes, inherit to one plus model. So this and we have net savings ratio, which is S or total savings divided by these are some dangerous time, I guess. What is the dengue infection rate nowadays? Does any of you know anything about dengue recently?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I saw
Sir,
amount
sir, I
to,
have a question.
yes.
Sir, you wrote y equals to ak. What does it mean by ak, sir?
It's just constant. It's A is, you can think
A.
it as a, it's a
What is a?
constant. K is the capital.
Sorry, k is capital and what is
Y is output. Okay, let me redo the whole thing. Okay. So output Y is some constant times capital. So you can basically write down it as K divided by Y is equal to 1 over A, or if we're just going to call it C. C is the incremental capital output ratio. If you do rearrange this equation, that's what you get. Okay.
okay, sir? Thank you.
And the savings rate is, or savings ratio is savings divided by output is equal to some savings rate S, net savings rate. We're focusing on net savings rate here. Then total savings is basically the fraction of output saved here. And what we do with this savings is basically we're going to invest it. So investment is going to be equal to savings. Now investment is nothing but the change in capital stock, right? If you remember. So how capitals? So if you're thinking about changing capital stock from last year to this year, so that means the difference between these two is basically the level of investment that you experienced last year. So we can, so this equation can be rewritten as so using this one we can write down it as change in K equals C times change in Y. Okay, because C is a constant, so any changes that you see in K is going to be equal to C times the change in Y that you experience. So from here we can write this one. So savings equals investment. So savings. So savings rate times output is this is your savings. Net savings we're talking about is equal to investment, which is change equal to change in K, right? So basically this is what you get. So this is not exactly, this is not really 5, this is S. Okay. So whenever you see this 5, because I converted from PDF to, so there is some software that you can use to prepare um, lecture slides. So I have the lecture, I made my lecture slides, and it was lecture slides were originally in PDF format. So I cannot really write on PDF directly as easily as I can with the PowerPoint. So I had to convert it to PowerPoint, and that messed up some of the symbols or letters. So this is just S. Okay. Rearranging this one, we get savings rate times Y. So savings rate times Y is equal to C times change in output. So if you rearrange this whole thing, you get this one. So this is basically change in Y divided by Y is equal to savings rate, net savings rate divided by incremental capital output ratio. Now, let's say,
Sir,
yes.
you said that 5y is not 5, it's s, but doesn't it come from the net savings ratio? S is equal to 5y.
So this is all these things, as I said. Okay, let me get to the main file. I think that will help you understand what I'm talking about. So this is your this is the file that you have. Okay. Um, so as I said, the slides that I have, I made those slides in PDF version, not using different something other than the PowerPoint. So the problem with that was that I cannot really, as you can see, even if I try to write it, I don't have freehand writing in here. I can take something, I can do drawing requests. It's not really that easy to write in this one, okay? So that's why what I did was I have converted this into PowerPoint slides. That's why the slide went, the things, you see this is savings rate, okay? I think I can, let me give it a try. I think we can handle this now. Okay, does it help? I mean, if
Yes, sir.
it's not really easy, convenient to write in this one. That's why I use PowerPoint, and I had to convert it to PowerPoint. Okay, so it's not really easy writing in here. Anyway, so as you can see, Fariyama, can you tell me what does this thing mean? Delta y divided by y. What does this term mean here?
Sir, change in output divided by total output.
I don't know if it is my network issue or your network issue, but I couldn't really hear that. Um, so can someone tell me what this thing is?
Also, this is basically the growth rate since change in y by y.
Exactly. So this basically represents the growth rate of output. Okay. So growth rate of output in an economy is the ratio of net savings rate and incremental capital output ratio. So if you think about an economy, okay, so any question here about this one?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so that we can, so this is the net, we are taking as the net savings rate, but we can convert, we can get to the gross savings rate term. That would help us include some additional terms. So if we include the gross savings rate in our analysis, then we have growth rate of output as the ratio of savings rate and incremental capital output ratio minus delta is the depreciation rate. Okay. The rate at which capital loses its value because of wear and tear in the process of using those capital equipments. Now, as you can see here, yeah, it's not, I cannot really erase that.
It's fine
Let
if you use the
me go
PowerPoint.
back to that one. So this is really, so I can easily write here and I can erase whenever I want. It's convenient. Anyway, so this is basically gross savings rate divided by C minus delta. Okay, so the implication that you see here is that the growth rate and economy is going to grow at a faster rate if it has higher savings rate, if or if it has a lower capital output ratio, and if it has lower depreciation rate. Now, another way to explain this term C that you have, the capital incremental capital output ratio, is taking the inverse of this C, 1 over C, which gives you a measure of the efficiency of capital utilization. So 1 over C can be, so C is the incremental capital output ratio. So if you transform it in this format, it gives you the efficiency, it gives you a measure of efficiency of capital utilization. That means the higher the value of this term, that would indicate lower value of C, right? So lower the value of C or higher the value of 1 over C means the economy is more efficient in converting using capital in for output production. So lower value of C means the economy is more efficient in utilizing capital to produce goods and services. Now the implication of this whole thing here is this: if you can encourage an economy to save more and efficient its capital more efficient and utilize its capital more efficiently, then the country will be growing at a faster rate.
So, what would be the difference between the normal saving rates and the gross savings rate?
So when it, okay, yeah, go ahead.
So both of the cases we are talking about the savings rate. It's still
Right.
the savings rate.
So when you talk about the savings, gross savings rate, basically we are we are including the value of we are not taking into account the depreciation that the economy experience. Okay, so you are saving a certain fraction of output, but at the same time there is also there is also some type of savings because your capital equipment is losing value, right? So that's kind of part of your saving, right?
Yes, sir.
So when you take into account that these savings, I mean, so there are two ways you can think of it. If you do not, if you exclude the saving from your analysis, then you have net savings, okay? And if you don't exclude that, then you will have gross savings. So so here we're including, we're looking just the amount of output that we are saving, and we are subtracting uh, the saving from here.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, does it mean if the depreciation rate is low or negative means appreciation? My savings rate is will be high.
Can someone explain? I don't know if all of you heard him, but I missed a lot of the things that he said. I don't know if it is my network issue. Can someone tell me what he was saying?
Well, sir, he asked if the depreciation rate is negative, then would it mean a higher amount of gross savings?
You cannot really have negative depreciation, okay? Because it's um, it's the loss of value that when you use the capital equipment, you are going to have a loss of value in your capital equipment. So I wouldn't expect negative depreciation rate. It can be zero. I mean, if it doesn't have any loss in value because of wear and tears. But because of using something, since you use something that doesn't, it is unlikely that its value is going to go up, right? When it comes to capital machineries. Now, one of the main criticism that we have in this Harrod-Domar growth model is that So it's necessary, the higher savings leading to higher savings or higher investment, for higher savings state is a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. For example, in developing countries, generally, even if you have higher savings, that does not necessarily convert to investment and into capital because of various reasons. So if that doesn't happen, then higher savings rate is not necessarily going to give you a higher economic growth. So you need the necessary, savings rate, higher savings rate could help you. I mean, it can be used as a necessary, it is necessary savings rate for growing at a faster rate, but to accommodate your higher investment, you need good infrastructure or institutional setup so that um, savings can be converted to investment and capital equipment for productive purpose. Okay, I think we can take a break. Okay, okay. So come back at say 4:08. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back, everyone. Uh, okay, so if you think about this, one, um, okay, so going back to the implication of the higher normal growth model, this is basically the main implication. So if a country can save more, that country is likely to grow at a faster rate. However, as I said, it's higher savings is a necessary condition, but it does not necessarily it does not mean that the country will be growing at a faster rate. Savings may not necessarily be converted to investment, or even invested, it might not be efficiently utilized if there is a lack of sufficient good infrastructure or institutional settings. So higher savings and investment may not necessarily indicate higher economic growth. Now, if you think about this, the main implication here of this change. So, what does it mean? Let's say, for example, this higher savings rate basically means the economy will grow at a faster rate. Now, what if an economy has a low savings rate because the economy is poor? If we have a if we have an economy, okay, can someone let me know if you can hear me? Because
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes, sir.
if if so, poor nations are likely to have lower savings rate. So if they have lower savings rate, they will be growing at a lower rate, which in turn indicate that they are going to have a lower savings, which in turn is going to ensure that the economy will kind of remain poor. So it looks like a poverty trap. Is there any way out of it? And sometimes it's not, savings may not necessarily be used for investment purpose. Savings may be used for as a precautionary savings, especially if people are poor. People are if people are poor and risk averse, in that case they might have precautionary savings, not leading to higher level of investment. So higher savings rate may not necessarily indicate higher economic growth. There are some a few other uh, criticisms. You should take a look at it. I'm going to move to this another theory. This is one of the most prominent one, Blue's two-sector model.
Well, sir, about the poverty trap, is it like we cannot get out of it? Like if the
Yeah, it looks like, if you think about it, so if the model, if we go back to the Hardeman growth model, so this model is saying countries with higher savings rate will grow at a faster rate. But what if a country is poor? The poor economies will have low savings, right? So they will have lower output or lower economic growth, and that in turn is going to indicate they will have lower savings again, which in turn indicate lower economic growth. And so looks like a trap. So this model does not really talk about how poor nations can get out of this poverty trap or low economic growth trap. Okay.
yes, sir.
Hmm. Now Lewis's two-sector model. It's if you remember, I was talking about the structure, the another strand of another strand of classic theories of economic growth, structural change and development the theory, structural change and development patterns. So structural change theory basically indicates that underdevelopment is due to poor underutilization of resources arising from structural and institutional factors that originates from both domestic and international dualism. So what does it mean? And the suggestion is that the economy needs transforming from subsistence to modern manufacturing economies, and again, as before, capital accumulation can help economies to um, grow. So, what is the dualism that we have here? So, Lewis two-sector model basically focuses on the idea that we have two different types of economy existing in a country. So, we have a rural agriculture-based economy, another is urban manufacturing economy. So these are the two sectors, the dual economy that we have. Generally, uh, traditional sector or rural sector is overpopulated with rural subsistence sector. Subsistence sector basically means people produce goods and services mainly for home consumption. And the other sector that we have is high productive modern urban industrial sector. If you think about China, for example, China has been growing at a faster rate uh, for a long time. So I'm not talking about what is going on during the pandemic. I'm talking about the situation before pandemic. China was growing at a faster rate since 1979, when the China moved. China had an economic reform. They had the first economic reform um, in 1979 that kind of gave people the incentive to move to the free market system, kind of. I mean, it was not exactly completely free market. It's still not completely free market. You will see from now and then that Chinese government kind of crack down on different, uh, crack down on people if they have a dissenting voice, for example. Are you familiar with Jack Ma? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Who's
sir.
this guy?
Yes, sir.
The CEO of Alibaba, I think. Alibaba, right?
Yeah, it's the founder of Alibaba. Okay,
Alibaba.
Yes, sir.
yeah, who's Alibaba? It's not the story. The
And
Alibaba.
online, it's just like Amazon.
Right,
Online.
So Alibaba.com, sir, e-commerce institution.
right, right. So Jack Ma was the founder of this organization. So he's just like Google, they also have, Google. Initially, they started with Google. Now they have something called Alphabet, is the mother organization. Now, so like Alibaba, they have Ant. For Alibaba, they have Ant is the mother organization now, and Ant Group wanted to do something very recently, but before doing that, Jack Ma was basically saying things that the communist government in China didn't like. So recently, he has been very quiet. He doesn't talk almost at all. I mean, he talks too. Definitely, he can talk. I'm talking about the public speaking in front of people, other people, or media. So his group, Alibaba or his Ant group, has been fined more than $2 billion, and his group said, okay, yeah, we are going to pay that, because if they say something differently, probably there will be more punishment. So China is not exactly a free market, but um, their system or
Sir,
yes,
can you tell us like why was it fined?
they
Like,
probably violated some rules and regulations. That is what the court says. Okay, and their court would say what the government says.
okay, good.
So basically, Alibaba said, Jack Ma said something that Chinese government didn't like. To find out, let me see. Network control. So, so you'll see something like this. So headline, I think you can see the title. Chinese billionaire Jack Ma goes missing after controversial, I don't know, controversial something. He said something that communist government didn't like. Um, so he was kind of introducing some new something new, some new financial services, and so he said something like here. Let's see. Yeah, actually made them really angry. It's not really that bad thing what he said. Okay, so he basically said that um, yeah.
So, sir, are you saying like this happened because it is a traditional economy or something?
No. It's not traditional economy. So traditional economy does not mean it's not free market. What it means is it relies on tradition. So it relies mostly on um, subsistence sector that focuses on production of goods and services only for own consumption, not for trading purposes. So he was saying about something about banking rules and process to be similar to that old people's club. So we need
Um,
something new for the next generation and young people. We must reform the current system, and that this kind of made them angry. And okay, let's see. Anglo fine for how much? And group fine $2 billion. China's Alibaba fines around record 2.8 billion or almost $3 billion. So China has, like many countries. China also has some antitrust um, regulations. Basically, you cannot act like a monopolist. Okay, you cannot do things uh, to eliminate your competitors. So the the reason they find Alibaba is because they're saying that Alibaba did something that goes against the law, antitrust laws. Okay, I think we have deviated a lot from our original discussion. Now, so what I was saying is that China went through several economic reforms. The first one was introduced in 1979. And that's reform. Before this 1979 economic reform, the Communist Party was kind of, the Chinese government was deciding what to produce and how to produce, or basically how the resources are going to be distributed. So basically, they had something collective farms. Okay, so the farm is going to produce, a certain fraction of that is going to go to the workers or the people of in that collective, and the rest of the output is going to go to government. Then during this reform, Chinese government basically said, okay, now you have to. The new system was something like this. So you produce a certain amount for the government, and the rest once you have paid the government amount, the amount for the to the government, and whatever you produce in excess of that, that's yours. So that gave people a significant incentive that okay, I can have my own, I can have ownership of my resources once I pay government's due. So people have get the incentive to produce more than they used to produce. So they have some extra incentive here. Okay, so that kind of fostered, uh, triggered the economic growth, significant economic growth that they had. And before this reform, they had plenty of surplus labor in the rural sector, in the agricultural sector, that was kind of not producing anything, but receiving some payment. What time is it?
It's 4:25.
424.
4:20. Okay, I think, well, let me go quickly over, before we do that, let me go quickly over to some questions from this related to Herdogan growth model. Okay, so going back to the Herdogan growth model, we'll talk about this Lewis two-cycle model in the next class. Going back to the Herdogan growth model, so some problem solving here. So suppose an economy has savings rate of 12.5%, depreciation rate of 0.04%, with depreciation rate of 4%, and capital output ratio of 2.5. What should be the growth rate? Give it a try. If you don't remember the formula for growth calculation, so this is the formula. Change in y over y is equal to gross savings rate divided by incremental capital output ratio minus depreciation rate. So what should be the growth rate?
So
1%, sir.
0.02.
0.02, really?
0.01.
Yeah, it should be 1%, right?
Yes, sir.
So growth rate is going to be is there anyone with the confusion about this?
Yes, sir. 0.01. Sir,
It's is 1%.
Yeah. Now let's say, for example, the another scenario where we still have this delta depreciation rate is equal to 0.4. We still have the same depreciation rate, but savings rate is higher now. What is the growth rate?
And that's 3%.
3%?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I didn't do the calculation, so all of you have to agree
yes,
on
sir.
this one.
3%. Yes.
All right. So as you can see, countries with higher savings rate actually is growing at a higher rate, right? So in this one, 12.5% savings rate, growth rate 1%. In this one, 17.5%, growth rate 3%. So with higher savings rate indicates higher growth rate. Okay.
Yes, sure.
This is a little bit more complicated. I want you to think about it, but the other thing, I'm going to stop discussing these problems or the course materials now because I want to talk about the presentation. Do you have any questions here? I want you to think about this question. I will talk about it in the next class if you do have questions. If you cannot solve it, let me see if you can do it on your own. Again, do you have any questions?
No, sir, no question.
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right then. So I think I'm going to, let's talk about Okay, so you have to make a presentation. So, did any of you think about any topic for the presentation?
Well,
Go ahead.
well, sir, we were, Sadit was saying why Scandinavian countries have high HDI and others don't. So I think we're going to work on that if Sadit
Yeah.
agrees.
Yes, sir. I would like to work with that with my group.
Yeah. Okay. Next, is there anyone else with a presentation topic? Who thought about it? Like, what you are going to present? Any other group? So one thing that you can do is, a sustainable development goal is uh, is something that you can think of. It's you should so what you can do is focus on a particular goal in HDI. So that is one topic that you can choose one of those 17 goals, and uh, I don't want multiple group presenting the same topic. Okay, so I'm going to share an Excel file with you where you will be writing your presentation topic. And so if someone already chose some topic, you should not work on that same one. I mean, I'm talking about the group. So if one group has already chosen something, you should not work on that. So speaking of this sustainable development goal, uh, so you can choose one thing, and the things that you would be discussing from sustainable development goals would be something like this. What is this goal about? Giving a quick background, and then you will talk about, each goal has different targets, and different target has different indicators. So what are those targets? What are those indicators? And in some cases, for some goals will have a lot of targets or a lot of indicators. It is probably going to be difficult for you to discuss all of them. So focus on the more important one. So you will have a list of all the targets and the indicators, but you don't talk about it during your presentation. You don't talk about all of them. You talk about the selected ones that you think more important. And you have to give a reason why you think these are more important targets or indicators. So, and then, so those targets or indicators will give you like some specific cutoff values. For example, indicators will have some specific cutoff values. So you have to identify those cutoff values, and then you have to so you have to give us a background on what is our current situation. The Bangladesh. What is the current standing of Bangladesh in terms of achieving the specific goal defined by those indicators? What do we stand? Are we close to achieving those targets by 2030, or we are far away from that? So you have to talk about that, meaning how much progress we have made in Bangladesh. And in some cases, you might find that we are not really making a lot of progress, especially because of the pandemic. Pandemic kind of set us about 10 years back in terms of poverty reduction and some other indicators. Or if you think about education, for example, a lot of people, you will see in the newspaper that uh, there has been a significant number of dropouts in because of the pandemic, especially for girls. In many cases, this um, the school-aged children, school-aged girls who were supposed to be in school, they got married because their parents wanted to kind of. It is illegal, but still we still have child marriage in Bangladesh. So, and also for other reasons. So there is a significant amount of school dropouts when it comes to SDG4. SDG4 is basically education. So talk about, if you can find out some decent article. I'm not expecting you to write do a thesis. Okay, this is just a presentation for a development course. So don't think about winning a Nobel Prize on this one. You're not going to do it, come up with some new ideas here. You're just going to present the things that other people work on and give us a nice story. And if you want to choose something else other than the SDGs, for example, Mashrut, Tasfia, and who else are in your group?
Tabassum, sir.
Yeah, so they already have a topic which is not SDG, so that's fine. Okay. And I think I think someone else was talking about some other issues not related to SDGs during our discussion. And I thought, I said, you can make a presentation on that for your presentation. I don't remember who was that.
It was Arif,
Uh,
sir. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Arif Chaudhary, I guess.
No.
So what was your topic? I mean, what was
So
that?
it was about the education index.
Uh, okay, what was the issue here?
So I asked you about the process of calculating the education index. That where we prioritizing the time, the years of schooling rather than the
I think,
quality.
okay, so that was, I don't think that was the issue that I asked you to research on. I mean, for presentation. I mean, the question that you asked, I think we discussed that. One was for children, the expected education, and another one was for adults.
Sorry,
Is
he
it?
was talking about the education quality instead of the mean years of
Right,
school.
right, right. Okay, yeah, I got that. So it's not about calculating the index. It was about, like, there are other things. Um, so we are not taking into taking quality into account. So yeah, if you want to work on that, like, is there any specific indicator that can be captured in HDI to include the quality of education? Yeah, that could be a good topic, but I don't think there is any good measure that can be used across. We have about so HDI is calculated for around nearly 200 countries, right? So it is going to be very difficult for you to find a common measure of quality that has the same scale or same type of quality index used in different countries. For example, years of schooling, it's the same thing across different countries, right? If you think about life expectancy, it's the same indicator used in different countries. If you think about income, it's the same thing, dollar value, right? But when it comes to quality of education, it is going to be almost impossible to find out that different countries will be using the same indicator. But if you can work on this if you are interested. But if you want to do something else, that's fine.
Sir, you can give us a feasible topic related to this. Work on
Um,
that.
I mean, there is the SDG 4. You can work on SDG 4. SDG 4 is education, about education. Okay.
Okay, sir.
I mean, SDG 4 itself is so Sustainable Development Goal is about education. So there are different targets and different for each target there are different indicators. You can just basically focus on. If you can also see if that SDG 4 includes the quality issue here. I think there are some indicators or some issues related to quality in SDG 4. It talks about quality education.
Yes, sir. We can work on goal 4. It's good
Yeah.
for us.
So once I post the Excel file for your presentation topic, you should write it down. So everyone, Ariful Haq Chaudhary and his group is going to present. Did you talk to? Yeah, you talk to your group members as well. Otherwise, I mean, you should not solely decide what you should be doing. So anyway, once I um, if Ariful Haq wants to present SDG 4, it's fine. Okay, the rest of you kind of give him the leverage in case he chose that one. So once I post the Excel file, you should write it down on the topic.
Yes.
Again, it does not have to be SDG 4. I mean SDGs. You can choose other topics of your choice, something related to Bangladesh that even if you can find something like that.
Sir, will there be a specific format, like how we will present it?
So for
Date.
SDGs, I already mentioned the type of the format, right? What should be the presentation issues? What are the things they should cover? So in SDGs, for those who are working on SDGs or going to work on SDGs, it would be give us a background. Why it is important, or what is this SDG for? SDG 4.1, 2, or whatever it is. Why it is important. Then you talk about what are the targets, what are the indicators, where do we stand, the Bangladesh as a country, where do we stand in terms of achieving these targets or indicators of that particular goal. And you can give us, depending on depending on the amount of materials available, you can also give us a comparative picture of Bangladesh versus our neighboring countries, for example, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. And you can also talk about how COVID-19 pandemic is going to has affected the achievement of all these things. For example, as I said, in terms of poverty reduction, this COVID-19 pandemic almost set us 10 years back. So we are, so it is like we have, even though it is 2021, the progress we have made, a significant amount of that progress has been erased by this pandemic when it comes to poverty. So it's so you can talk about this pandemic as well, in terms of how this pandemic has affected the particular world. All right.
And for
And so
others, sir, like we are just doing it differently. So like,
Yeah. So for others, I mean, we can talk about this. Like you can, if you want, like what are the things that you are going to do once you have selected your topic. So come up with a kind of a format that these are the things that you want to do, then we can talk if we can make some improvement, or if it looks like okay. Again, you know, so this is a 349 course, and the presentation, it's not your undergrad thesis, or it's not for writing a paper to win a Nobel Prize. So just keep that in mind.
okay, sir.
All right, if you don't have any questions, we can stop here. Zakaria Hawks, so someone late. Okay, that's fine, I guess. All right. So I'm logging out if you don't have any questions.
No questions.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.